Enough chatting. What I would like to hear from you now, just from any tables, hands up if you can just make a statement or just tell us, and Helen Burns is recording all of these ideas throughout the day. Just tell us what were some of the key ideas and things that you got out of today.
Chris Moynihan again. The key things that I took from all those speakers this morning were all had developed a robust and resilient system, all took long-term views, tried to avoid focusing on short-term issues or factors outside their control, all had a business focus, focused on cost control and utilised outside, mostly independent advice.
Thank you. Any other ideas tables want to add to that?
Lisa Castleman, DPI. Just a comment, the more passionate each grower was about their particular enterprise, the better they knew it. The more sort of heart that actually, I think, approached the whole business side of it with, because it really was their passion. And if it was something that had fallen off, whether it was the sheep or the cattle, they were complementary, they were synergistic. They didn't seem to actually know it in quite the same detail because they didn't have the same passion.
Graham Setter. I think one of the big issues in the mixed farming scene is this constant dilemma and potential conflict between diversification and specialisation. And I think each of the farm families that we heard from today had by and large solved that issue within their farm family. And I think that's great progress when individuals can specialise on something but still contribute to the togetherness of it. I think it's an extremely good theme, working together.
Marianne Lattimore, DPI. Our table came up with a few other things. Just the fact that all the farmers use critical thinking and really take all opportunities and utilise all the resources that are out there to maximise their business. The use of technology and the business approach to improve the efficiency of their operations. And again, yes, passionate about what you do. You've got to do that to make it work. Thanks.
Richard Hayes, DPI. One other thing that I noticed, and because I'm a researcher, I'm obliged to say this, I think all of the farmers showed that in one way or another they saw recording of data, of information as a critical part of their business, making evidence-based decisions, and I think that was important.
Peter Wynne, CSU. One area that we didn't actually address too much is the growing area of a carbon tax and carbon economy and how it impacts on your potential production systems, and that's perhaps something we can talk about over lunch, because I think this is going to be a growing issue as the years roll by.
I guess it's the thing that one of the themes that certainly came out for me was the togetherness of the couples. There was no mention at any particular point in time of any of the spouses working off farm, which I found a little bit unusual. I'm not too sure that was a distance, or maybe it was just better utilisation of labour for that not to occur. There were certainly economies of scale within each operation to support at least 2+ employees on a permanent basis. And the other thing I'd just like to note is that there was no mention either of any off-farm investments as well. I'm not too sure whether that was the case for any of you, whether there are any off-farm investments.
Thanks, Jeff. Jeff got here a bit late, so didn't hear about Bruce's big real estate boom that funds his cropping habit. Look, thank you very much for your ideas. I think they are really good themes that came out of today. For me, that issue of labour was a really interesting one today, how each of those businesses are focusing on efficiencies for labour, whether that's through capital investment or whether that's through innovative ways of managing labour. So that was another one, and the synergies and managements of cost as well. Everyone here has had an opportunity to ask questions, and what I'd like to just do now for the next 10 minutes or so is turn to our panel who haven't had an opportunity to ask questions, perhaps of each other. There's been not necessarily some conflicting things said by each of the panel members, but some interesting views, and I'm just wondering if they would like to have a chat now about that. I might start with you, Andrew, if that's all right. I know David talked about productivity gains, again, in the livestock, in the sheep business, and I'd just like to hear your comments or questions about productivity and gains in your business or other businesses.
I guess it's difficult in a sort of forum like this, but my ears pricked up when David mentioned that the sheep industry wasn't, and he used a broad term as a whole, was... to put it in my words, in risk of withering on the vine if it didn't adopt and change and get a bit more productive. I've got a slightly different view. I feel the sheep industry is really becoming divided, and the chasm between the two groups is becoming more and more. And I know I like to hold up something. I guess I'll use that shed as an example about what I like about mixed farming. But down at Bendigo a few weeks ago, or 6 weeks ago, I was at Lambex. And there was 700 breeders in there, in that huge big shed complex down there. 300 something odd went to the genomics session in the morning at breakfast at 7 o'clock before the conference even started as a prelude. And a lot of EBVs, a lot of breeding values, a lot of technology, a lot of feedback from processors, a lot of really cutting edge and full of young people. 2 weeks later, that shed was used for the Bendigo show and sale, and there was a lot of other people in there desperately trying to win a blue ribbon. It's a really good example of that shed, that facility being used over 2 different weeks from the two degree extremes of it. So I feel like there's a significant portion of the industry are really adapting very quickly, embracing a lot of the things. And I guess I might have a bias that it's a big part of the industry because it's a part of the industry that I operate in. So everywhere I go off farm and things that I do, I see a lot of that. I realise there's a hell of a lag of people that aren't doing it. But I think the gap will widen, and it's not a whole industry situation. I think there's a lot of people there moving forward very quickly and adapting very quickly.
Vicky, have you got anything you want to say to that? Because you and Tony seem to me, and from your story, really out there on the leading, possibly not the bleeding edge. Someone's got to be there, but...
I agree with Andrew. I think the meat side of the sheep industry is charging ahead at great guns, and to a certain extent I hope that they drag the merino industry along with them. I think I'm a great advocate for the merino as a beast, and I think taking on the same new technology and ASBVs, and I think the diversity within the merino genetics, there's so much potential to make it, a super production animal. I just worry when you look at the sort of the average merino grower who still asks their livestock agent or just takes their ute down the road and goes to the local stud and picks up 5 rams and comes home and doesn't really think about why or what this... I don't think every producer has to sit down and spend hours contemplating their genetics and how they're going to tackle it, but they at least need to put some thought into the stud that they're going to. Are they doing that groundwork for me? Are they, are they thinking about, where the industry's going? Are they using cutting-edge technology? The merino industry seems to be diverging in 2 very different directions, and I think, unfortunately, there's a smaller proportion that are heading in the fast lane.
Okay, thanks, Vicky. I'd really like for any of you panel members to come forward and comment on things that you've heard or questions that you want to expand, or even things within your own stories that you'd like the ability to expand on. I'm not sure whether all of you realise, but these videos started anywhere between 20 and 45 to 50 minutes, and were taken back to 6. So these guys do have a lot to say. So I'll just open it up to you guys for a few moments, and then if there's any lingering questions to any of the panel members, we'll cover those.
Kat, I'd like to make a comment. Watching all these videos, it's pretty evident to me that most of us have backed off on our production. We're not pushing it as hard as we used to. I think 6 or 7 or 10 years, or however long it's been for people of less than ideal weather, has really showed that when you're really pushing the system, that there's weaknesses, and those weaknesses can turn around and bite you really badly where it hurts the most. And I think all of us have worked out, or in my opinion, it seems to me that all of us have learnt that if we don't push it quite as hard, it decreases our risk quite significantly.
Any other comments from Rupert or Bruce or David on that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of key things that have come through, but building on that comment, one is that you've got to give yourself options in agriculture, because you're dealing with unpredictable prices and unpredictable seasons. So the more you can structure your business to give yourself options, the better it is. And be that for trading or whatever it is that you come in and top up, or you back off with fertiliser, or whatever your strategy might be. I think a successful business, because you make 50 to 60% of your profits in about three years out of 10, 30% of years, you've got to give yourself options. If you're stuck on a tram line and you aren't adaptable and you don't respond, it's really going to hurt. And Vicky made the point, you've got to capture the upside. So does the system actually allow you to capture the upside? I think the other thing was really interesting, because I'm actually not the farmer, but amongst up here, but listening to each of them, when you look at the businesses, they've specialised. They've specialised and they've simplified. And those businesses tend to have one core business, be it stud sheep, or be it cropping, or merino sheep, or whatever it might be. And then they've tacked the other one on as simply as they can, in effect. And so they've identified where they've got a competitive advantage in terms of their knowledge or their passion or the type of country they've got. And they've done that really, really well, and sort of removed as many distractions as possible, because the sheep were too much of a distraction in Murray's system. Chopped them out because it was too much of a distraction from the cropping. So giving yourself options and simple enterprises, I think, are really strong messages that came out from the other 5.
Thanks, David. Yes, Bruce?
Just going to make a quick comment about how we sort of lived through that decade in the early 2000s, and we were going to end up bitter and twisted like all our forefathers who went through the 40s, or the 1900s, the 1910s, and that's not good for agriculture long term. And the kids will come along in the next 20 years and wonder why we're so negative, it'll never rain again, and this won't happen, and that won't happen. So we're probably disappointed we had to live through that, and we're conditioned from it, but I think the industry will be right. Fair comment.
Any comments from the floor and your own experiences in terms of commenting on what you've heard?
I think it's your opportunity to, rather than just ask questions, I mean, obviously, for those of you that are either on the land with your own place or dealing with producers, I think it's important that we hear your opinions as well. So feel free to say something.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Marie Heffernan. I'd just like to say that we hear a lot of negative things about agriculture constantly, and I thought they're a very impressive group of people up there, and that the industry's in good hands with these people doing it. I just have one question about climate change, in the fact that nobody sort of commented on it. I wonder if any of your production systems have taken any kind of change, like you've moved your sowing time or anything by any period in order to allow for those changes that have been happening.
It's something that has to prey on your mind all the time. You can't turn on a radio or without hearing about climate change. But there is only one defence, and that is to make your operation. So in my operation, we haven't changed our sowing dates or done anything dramatically with climate change. There's only one way, and that is to make the well, it goes back to what David said earlier, as robust as possible, and to have other opportunities and risk control, so that if climate change does, there's only one way to combat it, and that's to be as efficient as possible.
Farmers, I think, deal with climate variability every year that they operate in, and we have huge variability, and I think we're incredibly good at adapting to that, and we're getting better at risk management and handling that, and climate change, true climate change will be an incremental thing. It's not going to, you're not going to wake up one morning and all of a sudden the system's different. So I think farmers have a great capacity for adaptation and will handle it as it unfolds, and sort of panicking about it and trying to completely change your system right now is sort of self-defeatist, I would have thought.
Thanks, Vicky.
Stuart Day, can I just make one thing very similar on climate change? We have been adapting with climate change as farmers for so long, it's not funny, and it's only the city people that seem to be worried about it.
Okay, any comments, and maybe you'd like to start this off, Rupert, in terms of research, any areas where you are looking for more information or better information that will allow you to have a more profitable and productive mixed farming system?
I didn't want to speak about research because it'd probably make me cry. Our research base, our knowledge base, is being eroded gradually over time by a process of really attrition. The government funding's been cut. We're going to end up with no sort of government-funded researchers, and we'll be completely dependent on the research from industry. And I think that that type of research will be very much focused on outcomes, as I probably said in my blurb, and that scares the hell out of me, to be honest. I believe I can't speak for the MLA and those other bodies, but the GRDC, as far as I'm concerned, are not kicking goals, and I want there to be a GRDC, and I want it to be effective and to own research and researchers and bricks and mortar. Helen Burns and I were having a discussion last night, but of course so I was saying one thing. I'm not attacking Helen in any way, but I couldn't understand. She was talking to me in GRDC speak, and so what kind of outcomes do we want, Helen? Can you give us an example?
The RDCs have to guarantee a return on investment.
And so what kind of outcome, but give me a GRD speak term, like you have to have some kind of goals, or you were talking about a...
There have to be measurable outcomes for research investment.
Anyway, Helen was speaking to me one language and I was speaking another, and we couldn't understand each other. And that concerned me greatly. I think that you will find that what Helen was suggesting, that we're going down the American road, and to my mind, call me an old socialist, but I think that is a road that is fraught with danger.
Can I comment on that further? Bruce and Andrew and I have all been fortunate enough to experience Brazilian agriculture. And I think Brazil's a classic example of what happens when a government has a commitment to research. 25 or 30 years ago, Embrapa, which is the Brazilian Department of Agricultural equivalent, went to the government and said, give us the money that you're subsidising the farmers with and we will turn this country around. Now, they didn't get all the money that the government was taking off the farmers when they were cancelling subsidies, but they did get a large percentage of it. And with that money, they went and said, what if? What if we can find new grasses that will grow in these horrible soils that our cattle can eat? What if we can grow soybeans that will grow on acidic soils in hot temperatures and only need a certain amount of rainfall? And today you look at Brazil and they're one of the largest agricultural economies in the world and are just getting bigger and bigger. And that was where Australia was 50, 70, 100 years ago. And I think this Western world's fixation with short-term outcomes, while I can understand there's only a limited pot, I think in the longer term it's going to cost us very badly.
We probably need to wind up, get on with lunch. I did just want to ask one question, and we heard this a couple of times. David, you said that for your investors, you don't really want to be on the leading edge. You don't want to be on the bleeding edge either. Yep. Now, that's a challenge, isn't it? Because if we have research and we have research outcomes, who the hell's going to adopt them first?
Yeah, I don't want to imply that we're laggards at the same time. I just think that, I've watched plenty of people dabble in new technology and they're just in there too early. And I don't think it's about not adopting it. It's adopting it when you are comfortable that a large part of the risks are taken out of it and you can see that it's going to add to the business, not detract from the business. So I don't want to ever imply that I'm anti-new technology. A lot of the new technology is a waste of time. Not for every business, but some technology is relevant for one. Individual sheep ID is very relevant for Andrew, but it's not relevant running 5,000 weathers. It doesn't mean the technology is bad. It just fits one business and doesn't fit another. So, I mean, we need the investment in R&D, and I have a particular bent about one organisation that's failing to do that quite badly, but I won't go there again. But it's fundamental that if we don't invest in R&D, we won't get productivity gains. Without productivity gains, your competitive edge in whichever sector you're in Australia will be eroded. But more importantly, globally, our competitive edge will be eroded. So we are low-cost producers of high-quality agricultural products across a whole range of sectors. We've got there not because of the bountiful natural resources we've got, but because we have invested in R&D and do it so well. So it's a real problem if we're not investing in R&D. I mean, we're a mature industry. 2 or 3% of gross value into R&D is probably enough. We're not like Google or someone that's going to run over the top of us in a year or two, where they need to spend 10 to 20%. But we're not even spending what we need to do properly now, and that's a real threat to us.
Okay. Thanks, David. I'm really sorry, but we do need to wind that up. Or did you? No, we do really need to wind that up here. What I want to do now is Shelley has some evaluation that she wants to run using your clickers. So if everybody could grab their clickers. Okay, so I know you guys are leading edge, but you haven't had a practice, so it'll be interesting to see how well you go with these. How will we know? It'll be our little secret. Okay, so overall, how useful have you found today's morning session? Not useful, somewhat useful, useful, quite useful, or very useful. So let's look at this as a sliding scale. Somewhat useful and quite useful actually kept me awake last night, but I'm sure that you can work through that and give it a realistic response. We're not going to show you the results, if that's all right. Wasn't my decision. How much opportunity do you feel that you've had to raise any issues that you have with mixed farming systems? How well do you think we covered the key issues relating to mixed farming? How well did we cover the different farming approaches that you saw today? This will be of great interest to the conveners of today's conference. It's something new for them. So how well did you like this process of panel presentation and discussion? I think we can guarantee that the panel members have probably put not at all. And finally, what action might you take as a result of what you've heard this morning? Are there any actions that you will take? Okay, thank you all for that. Now, just before we break for lunch, I just want to remind you, for anyone who came late or anyone who hasn't filled in the registration form details, there is a sheet on every table, and the conveners of today are very, very keen to get all that information. I know there will be thank yous at the end of the day, but this is my... God, what a rude crowd you have. Don't make me dog whistle. I do just want to thank the committee for this idea and how they've carried it out. I think it's worked really well. I think it's been a great day. I also want to thank the technology people as well, because I think it's run incredibly smoothly. And as we alluded to, as Andrew alluded to, one of the issues about doing things for the first time is the technology is hard to work. But I think it's gone pretty smoothly. And to thank Condo for their involvement as well in terms of their questions, to thank you as participants for getting involved, but I think the biggest thanks of all needs to go to the 6 panel members that we have up here today for sharing their stories. Members would have liked to have gotten these bottles of wine before they spoke today, but now they can celebrate.
Last night we had a dinner, and it was the first time that those guys actually saw their film clips. And so we on the organising committee were a little bit nervous. We were very confident though that their stories were brilliant, but these guys didn't know how they would turn out. Like we said, there was nearly up to 50 minutes of footage. And to get it into a short session like this, I'm guessing that a lot of them were actually quite nervous walking in last night to see their videos. And it's just an example of the courage that they've had, one, to do that, because they knew, I suppose, in their hearts that there wasn't going to be a lot of opportunity to back out if they weren't comfortable with what they saw, although, we did definitely give them that opportunity. But then too, to sit up here in front of you guys, it is a nerve-wracking thing. Now, one thing you guys don't realise, but these lights up here are fair income. They're sweating up there, and they flat out probably looking at you guys. So look, from the organising committee, thank you very much for giving your time, putting yourself out there, and on behalf of the audience, I am positive that we've all got a great deal out of that. So thank you, guys.